Greetings and salutations, this is Imperator Vespasian and his trusty sidekick.
Hello.
Do we get bored of saying that?
Me? No.
No, okay. Today we are going to take a look at the Polikarpov I-16, which is a Soviet-built fighter plane, the standard Soviet fighter at the outbreak of the Second World War, and the standard Soviet fighter throughout all the wars that Russia fought up to what we call the Second World War. As far as Russia is concerned, the Second World War began in the early 1930s when Russia began invading countries. They did that. This was the standard Russian fighter and it was sold to the Chinese. All the pilots, incidentally, were Russian. There were a very small number of Chinese-American pilots, who you may know as the Fighting Tigers, who, as soon as the war broke out, they volunteered to go back to China and join the Chinese Air Force. It was in this particular version of aircraft that China's first air ace got his kills. He killed a considerable amount of Japanese planes, 4 in one day in one battle. I need to do a video on this guy actually, because he was spectacular. This is the plane he flew at the time when he shot the 4 planes down. He also flew a pea shooter, I believe, and he finished his career in a Gloster Gladiator. He was shot down by the Japanese and crashed outside Hong Kong. He was taken prisoner by the Japanese. He was all burnt. The Japanese handed him over to the British. Hong Kong was British at that point. This was before the war. And because he was so badly burnt, and he had his burns made better, he escaped prison and rejoined the Air Force, which was pretty astonishing. He did really well. And he also was the first Chinese-American to receive the Congressional Medal for being awesome in an airplane. After all, he'd basically been single-handedly fighting the Japanese for about 3 years before America decided it was time to actually bother entering the war. But same for the British too. The British did absolutely nothing to help the Chinese while the Japanese were invading them. The British even didn't really like the idea of publicising the rape of Nanking. The Americans are more than happy to put it on newsreels and let the world know what had happened there. The British, not so much. Basically because the British government, some members of the British government were pro-Japanese. It's quite complicated, but let's just say they were traitors. And the Japanese Air Force was built and designed mostly by the British, these spies who worked for Japanese intelligence. But who cares, anyway? They all got off with it because they were all lords and gentlemen, and Churchill couldn't see the point in prosecuting gentlemen who go to the good clubs. But that's just the corruption of imperialism. Anyway, I've gone off on one again. This is a great aircraft. It's not. It was the fastest plane in the world at one point before the Messerschmitt came out and totally trounced its record. So it's a fast aircraft. Few downsides to it. The pilots after Barbarossa tended to use the plane as a ramming aircraft, a Turan aircraft, because they couldn't really damage the German planes. But that's by the by. The Chinese didn't use planes for that. The Chinese generally fought normal air combat, although they were the same pilots mostly. Carried a couple of small bombs as well, if you want to use it as a ground attack aircraft, although it is technically a cap aircraft. Bear in mind, most of the planes you're going to be up against in this period are going to be biplanes and pretty slow moving, so you're actually not a bad plane. That's really all I've got to say on the subject. I will go into the Polikarpov in Russian service in more detail when we do the Russian army.
Yes. Oh, I have questions this time.
You have questions this time? Okay, go on then.
Right. How come the Polikarpov I-15 only had 2 sets of wings, and the Polikarpov I-16 has 1 set of wings?
Right, well, I'll just do this. You see the gull wing there of the I-16. Let's see if I put it back next to it. That's the I-16 there. If we can get it into focus. That's the I-16 next to it with the gull wings. I don't know if you ever know anything about Polish aircraft, but if you take the bottom plane off this plane, you bottom wing off, that is basically the gull wing of the PZ-11. It was a single wing fighter plane, this, the Polikarpov 515. They added the bottom wing as a stabilizer. So it doesn't actually use the bottom wing to fly, it uses it as a stabilizer to stop the plane rolling. I'll just put it on here. Basically, because the wings are at the top, when you increase speed, it used to roll, and you couldn't stop it from rolling. So they added the bottom wing as a stabilizer. They fixed it with this design. They fixed the problem by putting the wing on the bottom. So if the wing's on the bottom, you've got, as it increases speed, the drag goes over, the air currents go over the wing, and it prevents the plane from rolling. Although they did roll. They were known for rolling out of control. They did it all the time, and sometimes it was actually useful because you'd roll for no apparent reason and the enemy couldn't hit you. But they were known for rolling. They were horrible planes to fly because the tailplane was too close to the wings. It created all sorts of problems if you're trying to do combat manoeuvres. The aerodynamics would seriously mess up the tailplane, and they would just spin out of control. Hence the stabilizers on the other plane and the fact they put these wings underneath. But that's all aerodynamic stuff and how to build planes. I've wasted my life, haven't I?
No.
No? Okay.
No, because we're providing information for these beautiful people watching our videos.
Well, it's not going to help them playing a game of bolt action.
Hey, it makes them more brighter.
Yeah. So if you're going to include this in your army, it is best used as CAP rather than a fighter bomber, but you can use it as fighter bomber. If your enemy haven't got aircraft, then say if you're playing the Finns and they can't afford the planes, then use it as a ground attack aircraft. Just use it as a strafing fighter, straight out of the rule book, or just use it as two cannons and 2 machine guns mounted on an aerial base. Easy enough to do. So it's entirely up to do what you want to do. They didn't carry the 500-pound bombs, they only carried 2 250-pound bombs. So it's an anti-infantry weapon. The 250 was a fragmentation bomb, generally. So you would drop them over a target. Yeah, so that was about it. Next.
Last one.
Last one.
Was this fighter/bomber mainly used for fighting, as fighting planes in the sky, or air combat, or was it mainly used for ground attack, for blowing tanks up or killing infantry, or was it just both? Was it just both of them?
It was, by the Chinese, it was used in both roles. It was used as a ground attack aircraft or an interceptor aircraft. They were the only planes the Chinese had that could actually get to the altitude of the Betty bombers, the 84s, I can't remember what they call them, the big Japanese bombers that were flying around China, carpet bombing everything. These guys could get to the altitude and they could do serious damage to the Japanese because the Japanese stupidly didn't supply their bombers with aircraft to protect them. Same mistake the Germans made in Barbarossa. As soon as Barbarossa started, you had bombers flying over with aeroplane escort, fighter plane escort. And then after the first few days they said, hey, we don't need air cover anymore. We'll just send the bombers unescorted. The Germans made the same mistake in Poland. They didn't learn from it. In Poland, after about the 3rd day, they started sending bombers in without fighter escort because they assumed they'd eliminated the Polish Air Force, because that was their plan, to destroy the Polish Air Force on the ground. They never did. But no one knew they hadn't done, because no one told anyone. And so you had these bombers flying to bomb Polish cities and Polish defences, and well, the Poles just intercepted the German planes and shot them down. So basically, you would be using it as both if you play Chinese, but if you're going to play Russian, you use it as CAP, combat air patrol, most of the time. But for the Chinese, you can use it for both.
Okay.
It is a fighter bomber, so you can use it as a fighter or a bomber.
That's all questions.
Well, yeah, I mean, everything else about it is on the Russian front, and we're not talking about the Russian front, we're talking about using it for the Chinese Air Force, so...
Opposite.
Yeah, it's I don't want to give you too much of the Eastern Front history of the plane, because...
we're having the Eastern Front later.
Yeah, because it's not relevant to this particular video, which is about the Chinese Air Force. Again, it carried they were designed to carry the rockets, the 600 wing rockets, but they never carried them. The Chinese never used them, as far as I can tell.
Did you say in the other video?
Yeah, I said that in the other video. Don't worry too much about it. Two 20mm cannon will outgun most Japanese planes. Most early Japanese planes were only fitted with machine guns. The Hayabusa, which is the Japanese fighter. Was it the Hayabusa was the later one. The standard fighter plane of the Japanese Army, Navy, throughout the early stages of the Chinese War was the Aichi and the Hayabusa, and both of them were outgunned by this plane. So, because neither had cannon, they tended to have heavy machine guns. So, this plane fighting against the Japanese planes which have no armour, it's impressive. You're going to shoot the Japs out of the sky, no problem. So, if you're fighting Japanese, get this plane, because it's got cannons, it's got machine guns, it's great.
Renewable.
Yeah, and if you're fighting light planes, then get the I-15, because you can. That's got 2 additional machine guns, and it's got 6 machine guns, giving you 6 times 4.
24. 6 times 4 is 24.
Okay, giving you 24 dice to shoot at the enemy. That's impressive. That's a lot of dice.
This is what happened to my ship.
This is what happened to your plane, yeah. So that is it. Any more questions?
No.
No. Oh, fine. Okay. I'll just sit here and be quiet then. Over to you.
So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe, and comment down below what if you think I could have asked in practice phasing for this new Polikarpov I-16, is it?
This I-16 is the one with
I-16.
1 wing, I-15 is the one with 2.
And check out other videos we've done on our Chinese army. That's everything from me.
And that's everything from him.
Ta-ra!